Trump taps White House economist Stephen Miran to fill Fed vacancy on temporary basis. President Trump has announced the nomination of Stephen Miran, the current chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisors, to serve temporarily on the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors. Miran's appointment would fill the seat vacated by Adriana Kugler, whose term was set to expire this January but who announced her early resignation in August. Business Insider, Markowicz. Miran's nomination is short-term, set to run through January 31, 2026, and requires Senate confirmation. Markowicz. Business Insider. Economists view Miran as a consistent ally of Trump's economic views. He has been a vocal critic of current Fed Chair Jerome Powell, advocating for lower interest rates and aligning with Trump's push for a more aggressive monetary easing. Markowicz. Miran's policy stances are seen as dovish, favoring rate cuts, a weaker dollar, and looser monetary policy, which could influence the Fed's future direction if his short tenure gains traction. Barron's, The Wall Street Journal. Beyond rates, Miran has questioned the Fed's institutional independence, proposing sweeping reforms including expanded presidential control over the central bank, a move that could herald broader structural changes. The Wall Street Journal. Reuters. Market reaction has been muted, but analysts warn his presence could increase pressure on Powell and potentially shift internal Fed dynamics, particularly given Trump's broader ambition to reshape the institution. Barron's. Reuters. So, what's next? Senatorial hearings are expected once Congress returns from recess in September, with a confirmation vote likely to follow. Analysts are watching closely to see if Miran becomes more than just a temporary placeholder, or if his arrival signals the beginning of a deeper transformation at the Federal Reserve. Got it? You want a much longer, narrative-style script that dives deeper into the story, not just the short news bite. Here's a more expanded version that feels like a 7 to 8 minute segment, blending background, context, and implications. In Washington, an announcement from the White House is drawing attention from Wall Street to Main Street. President Donald Trump has tapped Stephen Miran, currently serving as chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisors, to fill a vacant seat on the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors. It's a move that's both temporary and highly strategic, and it could mark another step in the president's broader effort to reshape the central bank. Cut to B-roll, footage of White House, Miran at economic briefings, shots of Federal Reserve Building. Stephen Miran isn't a household name, but in economic policy circles, he's been a rising figure. Known for his academic work in finance and his tenure advising the Treasury Department during the Trump administration's first term, Miran is now set to occupy one of the most powerful seats in global finance, at least for a while. The vacancy he'll be filling opened when Governor Adriana Kugler stepped down earlier than expected, creating an opportunity for the president to appoint a trusted ally to the Fed's 7-member board. But this is no lifetime seat. The appointment, if confirmed by the Senate, would run only until January 31, 2026, meaning Miran's influence, for now, will be on a clock. Miran's economic philosophy is well aligned with Trump's. He's a consistent advocate for lower interest rates, a weaker dollar, and looser monetary policy, positions that stand in sharp contrast to the cautious stance taken by current Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Miran has been openly critical of Powell's approach, arguing that high interest rates risk choking economic growth and that the Fed should act more aggressively to stimulate the economy. But his views go beyond just rates. Miran has floated ideas that could fundamentally change how the Fed operates, suggesting more direct presidential influence over the central bank, a shift that would challenge the Fed's long-held independence from political leadership. The timing of this nomination is no accident. Trump has made no secret of his desire to overhaul the Federal Reserve. By placing Miran in a decision-making role, even temporarily, he injects a voice into the room that could sway policy debates. While one governor alone can't steer the Fed's course, in a close vote or in shaping internal discussions, Miran's presence could matter, especially if he becomes a frequent dissenting voice. So far, markets have reacted cautiously. Traders know that any single governor's appointment doesn't immediately change the Fed's trajectory, but analysts are watching for signs that Miran's influence could tilt the balance in favor of more dovish policies, policies that, in the short term, might boost stocks and borrowing, but could also stoke inflationary pressures if applied too aggressively. Miran's appointment is temporary, but it's also a test run. If the Senate confirms him and he works well with Trump's economic team, we could see him positioned for a longer-term role, especially if the president gets the chance to make more appointments. Cut to B-roll, Senate floor, confirmation hearing imagery. Narrator, the confirmation process will be the next hurdle. While Miran has solid credentials, degrees in economics, financial market experience, and prior government service, his outspoken criticism of the Fed's current leadership could become a flashpoint during Senate hearings. Expect pointed questions from lawmakers concerned about politicizing monetary policy. Cut to wide shot of Federal Reserve building at dusk. Narrator, if confirmed, Miran's term will be brief, but the appointment sends a larger message. It's a signal that Trump intends to challenge the Federal Reserve's status quo and surround it with voices that share his vision of a more aggressive, growth-focused monetary strategy. Closing on camera anchor. In the world of central banking, even temporary players can leave lasting marks, especially when they're stepping into the job at a moment of economic uncertainty and political change. Whether Stephen Miran will be remembered as a placeholder or a catalyst for a new era in Fed policy remains to be seen. For now, all eyes turn to the Senate, where his nomination will face its first big test. If you want, I can also extend this into a 12 to 15-minute version that adds more historical context on Trump-Fed relations, a detailed biography of Miran, and expert opinions on potential policy shifts. That would make it feel like a full-length documentary segment instead of a standard news report. Miran would serve the roughly 6 months remaining in the term of former Fed Governor Adriana Kugler, who resigned on August 1st. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said Miran would fill the spot until the term expires January 31st, and he'll then name a permanent replacement. Who is Stephen Miran? Miran was a senior fellow at the conservative Manhattan Institute and a senior strategist at Hudson Bay Capital, a global investment firm. He previously was a senior advisor for economic policy at the Treasury Department, helping create fiscal policy that supported the economy during the pandemic recession. A temporary appointment on the Fed's board typically wouldn't draw much attention, said Barclays economist Jonathan Miller, a former Fed economist. But for months, Trump has badgered Fed Chair Jerome Powell to lower interest rates, calling him a numbskull, moron.